a lot of misinformation being pushed out by all sides on the interwebs. And today I'll take my time and walk you through some of the recent specifics. Hello, everyone. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel, and welcome to the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast number 180. This is the one about Jeet Kune concepts and adding styles. As you're logging in, if you'd be kind enough to say where you're logging in from, hit the like button and feel free to continue doing so throughout the broadcast. If you're catching the simulcast over on the YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell as well. If you enjoy my work and you'd like to support the program, please visit jkdrebel.com, click on the Rebel Gear link, and check out our offerings like this. This is a UMAA Kali JKD t-shirt. It's actually inspired by an old design from the Inasano Academy, one of my favorite designs, and so we kind of reproduced it here locally, but we make it available to people online as well. But of course, the best thing you can do is to share this video and spread the word about the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast. All right. So some people have said that when I come to the defense of Dan Inasano, I never dispute what his people are saying about Jeet Kune, which I find kind of weird because I'm one of his people, so to speak, and so and I dispute stuff that's. I mean, I suggested checking out like past issues of the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast, but I'm happy to address some of them individually as well. So one of them is this thing about JKD is not about learning different styles. It's not about picking what style works for you and making that your own Jeet Kune. So you pick 5 styles and then you say, okay, these 5 styles are my Jeet Kune. And you cannot learn Jeet Kune by accumulating different styles. So this one arises out of a repeated post by my good friend, Richard Torres. This was the original post, which was then followed up like a day later by a second similar post. And in case you can't read the caption, it says, an individual cannot learn the principal roots of Jeet Kune through the accumulation of many different styles, for that would be like a singer trying to improve his voice by accumulating many songs. Rather, it is by understanding the roots of the problem. And so the contention is that in 1969, as you see in the date on the first photo, the contention is that Inasano obviously knew what was true about Jeet Kune, but then something happened and he changed his approach, which I suppose is evidenced by him using terms like Jeet Kune concepts, I guess. And then there was this video that was shot, I believe, in the 90s, maybe even in the 80s in Australia, and this is where the term the Jeet Kune blend was maybe first heard by some people, and this reinforced the idea, I guess, of another post, which was let me see if I have that one here. I may or may not. Let's see. Do I? I'm pretty sure I have it. Yes, there we go. Okay. So this was the next thing that was posted, which was the idea that at the IMB Academy in the 1980s, they showed in their brochure that there were these different classes that were taught, and then these different classes were taught so that then you could have experience in these different styles, let's call it, and then you would put these styles together and that would be your own Jeet Kune. So this is where it's contended that the idea of adding styles the idea of Jeet Kune Do concepts being about training a bunch of different styles. This is where it came from. One problem with that is that in the brochure, it was pointed out by several people that the Junfan class or even the JKD class was always offered separately. So yes, maybe the brochure said there's this class and there's that class and there's this other class, but there was always a separate Jeet Kune Do class. Even way back in the 1970s, at the infamous Kali Academy, there was a separate, somewhat private JKD group that you had to be voted into. So the idea that Dan and Asano, or any of the concepts people, let's call them, have ever taught a bunch of different classes and said this bunch of different classes is Jeet Kune Do, that contention was pretty much addressed by the explanation. So I had, and in this effort, I had, and I have to shout out to some of my cohorts in this, Andy Wilson, Tim Becker, Kevin Myers, Jeremiah Gill, Jay Cooper, Nick Cavallino, Ruben Barreto, Lee Arroyo. These are the guys whose stuff really resonated with me. There are others, but they helped to point out the simple fact, and actually other related facts as well, but to point out the simple fact that JKD has always been offered as a separate entity, has always been taught at the Inasano Academy as a separate entity. So hopefully we've put that argument to rest, and we won't see it again. Another connected argument is this whole thing about Junfan Gung Fu being Bruce Lee's physical art, and Jeet Kune Do is just the philosophical part, or it's just a concept. So this is something that to coin a phrase, right? You kind of have to have been there in order to understand. But I would like to point out that up in Seattle, and actually this is something that Tim Becker pointed out, and I kind of got it from him. Up in Seattle, they maintain that what they teach, what they got from Bruce Lee, is called Junfan Gung Fu. So right there, we should get the understanding that Junfan is something separate from Jeet Kune Do, somewhat, unless you want to argue with the late Taki Kimura and with Andy Kimura, that there is no differentiation between Junfan Gung Fu and Jeet Kune Do, because as we have all heard, Taki Kimura would say, what we have here is Junfan, not Jeet Kune Do. For Jeet Kune Do, you have to go to Inasano. So we should have a basic understanding that there is some kind of a delineation or a differentiation. See, I can just vaguely remember hearing Dan and Asano say something like Junfan is the physical art and Jeet Kune Do is the philosophical art. But I vaguely remember that, and I suspect that the reason for that is that it's something that I would have heard. I would immediately have understood why he was expressing it that way, and then I would probably just have like dismissed it, never dreaming that one day in the future it would become an issue for someone. Now, most people will recognize that there were three stages, let's say, and I've detailed this before, I think it was just last week's broadcast, right? So in case you forgot or you didn't see that edition, there's a screenshot that I used last week, and this is taken right from the Art and Philosophy book. And what it shows is that Wing Chun was the nucleus or the birth of things. Wing Chun was the beginning of it all. Junfan was liberation from Wing Chun. So that's where a phrase from Bruce Lee, like, I teach the Junfan method, that's where that would come from. And then Jeet Kune was freedom from all stylistic or systematic considerations. So Jun Fan, the physical art, and Jeet Kune, the philosophical art, or the philosophical part of the art, is a way of saying that Bruce Lee was more steeped in physical development during his Jun Fan era, but more philosophically oriented in the era of Jeet Kune. Not that there was a huge difference between the two. It's just a stage of development. So very often, because I thought of this, very often what you hear right alongside the whole Jun Fan physical, JKD philosophical explanation is that Jun Fan can be organized and taught in a fixed manner, whereas JKD cannot. And this is explained, I would say, to illustrate the fact that individual expression is allowed in JKD, actually required somewhat, for both instructors and students. So there's a quote that I think it was Jay Cooper who sent it to us, or it might have been Andy Wilson as well. But there's a quote that says, finally, a JKD man who says that Jeet Kune is exclusively Jeet Kune is simply not with it. He is still hung up on his self-closing resistance. And you guys know the rest of the quote, right? It finishes up that he has simply not digested the understanding that truth exists outside of all patterns and molds, and awareness is never exclusive. So that idea of Jun Fan physical and JKD philosophical is just a way of explaining what might have been Bruce Lee's priorities almost during a period of time, right? Okay, so what's the next one? So the next one is the whole 4 ranges, right? Kicking range, punching range, trapping range, grappling range. And so the contention is that Inosanto is saying that you could use any style of kicking in kicking range, any style of punching in punching range, any trapping style in trapping range, and any grappling style in grappling range. And then the question that was posed is, do you mean that we should not choose styles and ranges, or something like that, right? So this is where that whole idea of adding styles, the Jeet Kune concept, or the JKD blend, like I showed you this thing about the JKD blend before. The question to ask is, well, why did Dan Inosanto do this? Why would he show something like being able to go from art to art? I'll tell you my understanding of it. There was the promise made to not teach Jeet Kune commercially, but there was the demand to teach something about Bruce Lee. And I'm talking primarily here on the seminar circuit. So following the idea of providing experiences for students so that they could arrive at their own conclusions. And again, I must stress, this is on seminar. So on seminar, you can teach a blend of techniques from different arts, especially if you yourself are having a good time training in these different arts. So you can teach a blend of techniques right alongside the techniques of Jun Fan. And then you provide students with you provide them the experience of experimenting with different arts and seeing commonalities between them. Because remember that this is something that Bruce Lee himself experienced, seeing the commonalities between things and then being able to pick or devise his own method. Something that can help with the understanding of that is, we got this from Andy Wilson, and it's the one here that says, what do we teach? and it says individuals, not lessons, not styles, not systems, and not methods or techniques. The idea, or one of the ideas, is being able to provide experiences for growth to your students. Not so this thing about the styles, and it must be this style, or you use this style when you're doing this and whatever. That's not it. That's a seminar type approach. Back at the school where you're teaching a Jeet Kune class, it's something different. But seminar, which is a commercial endeavor, the promise to not teach Jeet Kune commercially, that's what's being paid attention to. But you're showing a method to come to your own realizations by giving students these different experiences from these different martial arts systems. So hopefully we got that one answered. We move on to the simple angle attack and the simple direct attack. So the contention here is that these were changed, and I guess almost deliberately changed for some reason, to single angle attack and single direct attack. So the evidence is in Bruce Lee's handwriting, the 5 ways of attack. What we see here is the simple angle attack, the SAA, and all that stuff. Okay, so I had talked about this before, and I really sincerely believe that this one would not rear its ugly head again, since Andy Wilson did a masterful investigative examination into this. So I had previously theorized that it was easy to see how someone could have ended up substituting the word simple with the word single, simply because the former consists of the latter. But don't take my word for it. On page, which one is it? I got it here for you. Yeah, so on page 166, I think, let me make sure. Yeah, 166 of the Tao of Jeet Kune, right? It says here, all direct and indirect attacks are composed of a single movement. So, all direct and indirect attacks composed of a single movement are called simple attacks. So it's right there. Let me read it again. All direct and indirect attacks composed of a single movement are called simple attacks. Simple attacks, single movement. Oh, single attack. Not necessarily a big time change to give it a completely different meaning or whatever. So that was my theory. It's just a theory. I wasn't there. I can't say for sure this is what happened, but to me, it makes simple common sense. Now, what happened thereafter, Andy Wilson, who's a way better investigator than I am, Andy showed where on page 196, so 30 pages down later in the Tao of Jeet Kune, it says the progressive indirect attack is performed in a single forward motion. So once again, we have this idea of single motion when we're talking about attack. However, the progressive indirect attack is performed in a single forward motion without a withdrawal, as opposed to the single angulated attack. Those are not my words. Those are the words from Bruce Lee's notes in the Tao of Jeet Kune. PIA is performed in a single forward motion. There's no withdrawal, as opposed to the single angulated attack. So right there, we have, in Bruce Lee's words, single angulated attack. So whatever reason somebody had for switching, appears that, as some people said, that Bruce Lee might have been in flux in how he wrote things, how he thought about things, and maybe even how he referred to things. So hopefully this idea of simple versus single, we've handled that as well. Moving along, let's see. The next one was, oh, you mean Jeet Kune did not use, no, Bruce Lee did not use 26 styles to create Jeet Kune? So according to a blog post from my JKD senior, Chris Kent, and if you guys go to his website, you can see it there for yourselves. This is a huge misperception that stems from information gleaned from Jesse Glover by John Little at some point in the 1990s. And Glover happened to mention that Bruce Lee taught him techniques from Wing Chun, from Praying Mantis, from Tai Chi, from Bagua, from Eagle Claw, from Hunga, and from Tiger System. And if you've ever seen, and I know you guys are Bruce Lee guys, so you've seen these pictures of him and Jesse Glover. And if you look at the stuff there, this is all, a lot of this is esoteric. That's like the phoenix eye, fist, and what have you. So these are esoteric gung fu techniques that Bruce Lee is posing here in pictures with Jesse Glover. And it says that in 1960, when these two first met, arts or styles of arts that that held Bruce Lee's interest, there was about there was 14 of them in terms. So this is the information gleaned from Jesse Glover, right? These are the things that Bruce Lee was interested in. And so if you look at the gung fu styles and you look at the arts that held Bruce Lee's interest, and then if you also look at the books, so apparently Bruce Lee would go up to Vancouver and buy books at the bookstores up there. Martial art methods that he brought books on, those number about 12. So you have the 14 styles that held Bruce Lee's interest, and then you have the 12 styles that he bought books about. I'm no math genius, but 14 plus 12 equals 26. So somehow this became an idea that Bruce Lee combined 26 arts to make Jun Fan Gung Fu or to make JKD or whatever. And it's said that even highly renowned and highly respected people in the JKD clan of the Inosanto lineage are people who have promoted this idea. Well, yeah, maybe they have. Doesn't make it correct. It's incorrect, but you have to have an understanding. You know, me and my favorite Canadian JKD senior, when we talk, sometimes we say it's almost sad that some people were not there in the early days, you know, because then for whatever reason, they come up with these explanations for things. And then if they have a following, then they say it. So then people start to repeat what this respected person has said. And initially there's a lack of understanding. So now this lack of understanding keeps being pushed. And we end up with something like Jun Fan or Jeet Kune is, a combination of 26 different arts. No, That's not true. And if you hear anybody saying that, maybe now you can tell them that you've heard where a possible source for that misperception and that piece of misinformation. All right. Okay. So let's move on. Let me just make sure something here and something here. Okay. So the next one is this. What you mean? Bruce Lee did not teach 3 different systems, and only one person in the world is certified in all 3 systems. So this is another thing, another dig at Inosanto, another I guess retelling of historical truth or what have you. Now, I would say that this is somewhat extrapolated from the same idea of Junfan, the physical, and JKD, the philosophical, because we've established that there were 3 stages of development: Wing Chun, Junfan, Jeet Kune. And we do all know that there were 3 different certificates issued by Bruce Lee. So one source for this dispute is January 1997 article in Black Belt magazine. Now remember, you want to put Bruce Lee on the cover, and then you want to put some kind of salacious or sensationalistic headline or cover title so that you sell more magazines. You get it? Okay. It's a technique. It ain't rocket science. So there's this. It says on the cover, "I alone have been given the right by Bruce Lee to teach his art. Dan Inosanto puts his fist down," or whatever, right? Okay. I mean, come on. You don't know how to sell magazines. And then there's this picture of Inosanto's 3 certificates issued by Bruce Lee. So the interviewer says, the question as it's written, actually, I think I took a screenshot of that too. The question as it's written here is, yeah, how many arts did Bruce Lee teach you? And as reported in the magazine, Inosanto's reply is, Bruce Lee actually taught 3 arts, which he developed himself: his Tao of Kung Fu, his way of Kung Fu, his method of Junfan Kung Fu, and his Jeet Kune. Okay, so now you can take that statement in a magazine and you could go, well, here is a retelling of historical truth. Bruce Lee never taught 3 separate arts. Or you could go, okay, well, that's just saying that there was a time where the certificate that was issued said Junfan Kung Fu. There was a time where there was a certificate that said Tao of Chinese Kung Fu. And there was a time where there was a certificate that said Jeet Kune. Now, we don't know the context. Like I said, I wasn't there. Anybody who uses this as evidence that Dan Inosanto is telling, as we would say in the islands, telling stories, right? Anybody who uses this as evidence, well, I mean, you know, that's their right. They can say what it is that they want. Or you could quite simply look at it and go, well, maybe the interviewer is shown these 3 certificates, and the interviewer knows, well, if you have a certificate signed by your instructor, that's usually in what he has taught you. So if there's 3 certificates, there must be 3 arts that he taught you. So we don't know if there was a pre-interview conversation, and this is how that question got inserted into the article. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I wasn't there. But what I'm saying is that given an answer that Bruce Lee taught 3 things is not 100% inaccurate. There was a time where Bruce Lee taught a thing that has been referred to as modified Wing Chun. There is a period where Bruce Lee himself said, I teach the Junfan method. And there was a time where Bruce Lee said, what is this thing that you teach? And he called it Jeet Kune. You could say that those are 3 separate things. You could say those are 3 separate arts. You could say those are um, 3 examples of his evolution, or what have you. There's 3 certificates. Did he teach you 3 different things? Yes and no, at different points in. You see how many words it takes for me to explain this? It's so much easier to just go, yeah, there were 3 arts, without delving into the explanation about time period and time frame and evolution from this to this and all the other things that are attendant in that circumstance. You just say, yeah, there were 3 arts, here are the 3 certificates. And then maybe people could go research it on their own, or what have you. Or you could just say, this is evidence that he changed things and that he's telling stories about what really happened. And now the whole Jeet Kune world is confused and in an uproar, and nobody knows what's true anymore, and whatever, and whatever, whatever. I was in there. That's my take on it. You can have a much different take, because there are always people who are on the lookout for a way to criticize Inasano. And I don't know, maybe it's in an effort to prove that he's not as good a representative of Jeet Kune because he's moved so far away from the original teachings or whatever. Except that at his school, on a weekly basis, there's a Jeet Kune class, or a few. So I don't know where the evidence that he's moved away from the original teachings, I don't know where that evidence can be found. All right. So I think that's it for this evening. All right. So Leah Arroyo wrote something that actually reminded me of something that I had said before too, that we should all remember that we are reflections of our teachers, and constant pettiness on this forum, this Facebook thing, it could end up casting our instructors in an unbecoming light. So his suggestion is that we honor our teachers by showing respect for each other and stopping what he called the "my dad could beat your dad" nonsense, right? So let me make sure that I say this so that we have the video and the audio evidence of it. Because I did something the other day, maybe you've heard me say this before, that one of my regrets about being online so much is that online there is no intonation. I always thought that if you said something, if you typed something into Facebook and then you put like the smiley face or whatever, I thought that conveyed the meaning or the understanding that you're making a joke. Apparently that's not true. Apparently people read what you say, in some instances assume the worst meaning to it and ignore the emoji. It's like, I don't know. I really don't know. So that's why I said, this week, let's just do video. Forget the talking, too much talking and a lot of stupid talking. Let's just do video. Some people, most notably thus far, Robert Kerbo, Nick Cavallino, I'm trying to think of who else, but I draw a blank right now. But they have put up video, and I thank them for that. My point is, I have used Richard Torres's name extensively in this particular broadcast. Anybody who knows me, and if you've seen me interview Richard Torres, if you haven't, try to find those videos. They're up on the YouTube channel. And then you come back and tell me whether or not you think that in any way I have a problem with Richard Torres, the human being, or Richard Torres, the Jeet Kune instructor. Because I don't. And I'll tell you why. Because my instructor, Dan Inasano, doesn't have a problem with him, and I wouldn't be honoring and respecting my instructor, Dan Inasano, by picking fights with Richard Torres. So Richard will be, he probably holds the record for the number of times that he's been on the Jeet Kune dialogues. And I don't know if anybody's ever is going to surpass that. He'll be on again because I enjoyed talking with him. Enjoying, you don't always have to agree 100% with somebody in order to respect them, in order to think that what they have to say is worthwhile. You don't. Actually, it's a sign of decency, I think, to be able to do that. So if Richard puts something up and I happen to disagree with it, then we're going to go back and forth. And we're doing it in a public forum called Facebook, right? But I don't know how much longer I'm going to be doing that kind of stuff. I think a smarter way forward for all of us is, if we want to make a point about Jeet Kune, shoot a bloody video. I would prefer if it's a video of you yourself, but if it isn't, if you find a video that you think says what you want to say better. So I'll give an example of that. Now I'm tangenting and what have you. Andy Wilson and Tim Becker say what I mean infinitely 100 times better than I can say it, which is kind of a segue into the fact that on Friday, May 14th, Jeet Kune Dialogues episode, we'll do a 2-on-1. Tim Becker and Andy Wilson will come on and we'll talk JKD. But so that's just a long-winded way, because this is probably the longest broadcast we've done. That's just a long-winded way of making sure that people understand that I'm not trying to shut anybody down. I'm ready and willing to talk about Jeet Kune all the time, but not the stupid talk, not the ad hominem attacks and what have you, the personal attacks. Not my thing. And I'm not going to put up with that on the I Love Jeet Kune page. So you got something to say, do it with a video, you know, and whatever. Anyhow, enough talk, right? So what say you? Do you think that Dan Inosanto has moved so far away from Bruce Lee's original teachings that he's no longer a representative of Jeet Kune? Hopefully by going through these specific points, we have put an end to some of this silly discussing. I have no problem with discussing, man, but let's just raise the level of intellect when it comes to it. If you do come across somebody with these silly ideas about 4 ranges versus 3 ranges and 26 arts and Jun Fan, the physical and whatever, just point them to this I Love Jeet Kune broadcast, where hopefully they'll find the answers. So let me know what you think in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Follow me on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods, and on Instagram at Dwight D. Woods. I told you about Friday, Tim Becker of the Inosanto Academy and Andy Wilson of MKG Seattle. We should be on at 6 p.m. Today's a yellow day. There we go. So I'll see some of you on Friday at 6. If not, I'm sure I'll see some of you on Facebook, and I'll see some of you next Wednesday for another issue of the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast. Thanks for hanging out. Until then, enjoy the rest of your day. You guys be safe. Take care. Talk soon.